Sure, I'll name the parts.
You said hang with me, I thought that was like part one.
No, we'll do part 1 and part 2 and part 3.
That sounds awesome.
We'll do the Canadian border, and we'll do a photograph, and we'll do a thesis statement. How's that? Thesis statement. So, you get something new. What's the first thing you do? New poem. What do you do first? Very first thing. Before you read the poem, read the title. Consider the title. Right? Title first. The title of this poem: At the Unnational Monument Along the Canadian Border. So let's unpack that. What's a national monument? What's a national monument? That's an example, Washington Monument. You said statue?
Yes.
So statue, big stone thing. The Vietnam Wall is a granite wall with names on it. Is something to signify, symbolize, mark something that happened, right? Some are for, like I mentioned, the Vietnam Wall. Some are for battles and wars. Some, you've got a Stevie Ray Vaughan statue in Austin, Texas, and a Jimi Hendrix statue in Duluth, Minnesota. So sometimes it's marking, important figures. There's a monument at the plane crash site where Buddy Holly's plane went down that I've seen. So, that's what a monument is, okay. And some are national monuments and some aren't, national. Along the Canadian border, what do you know about the Canadian border? It's a border, and on one side is the US and the other side is Canada, okay. Yeah, we'll go with that. They also have a border with the Yukon territories, but we'll stick with Canada, USA, okay? So that's the title, At the Unnational, just a little different, at the Unnational Monument Along the Canadian Border. The poet is William Stafford. We don't know anything about him, never heard of him. We could maybe assume that it's from a male perspective, although gender doesn't always play a part. But we could assume male perspective maybe. We could assume he might be an American or maybe a Canadian, because Stafford, that last name doesn't sound Hispanic or, Asian or Russian otherwise we don't know anything about him, and those are just guesses, okay? Before we jump into the poem, what do we want to do? We want to survey the poem and tell me what it looks like, okay? So it's 2 stanzas, right? 5 lines each stanza. I do want you to check the line count. If you've got stanzas that don't have the same number of lines, I want to notice that. So 2 stanzas, 5 lines each. We want to look at the rhyming pattern, the punctuation, and see if there's any repetition. So the rhyming pattern, does the poem rhyme? So kinda, yeah, it does. Does every line have a rhyming partner? No. Are both stanzas exactly the same in their rhyming pattern? No. But that's fine, that's okay. The main thing is, if the rhyming pattern changes drastically, I want you to notice that. So that's all we do there. What about punctuation? These dashes? Yeah, okay, so, or hyphens, that's fine. So the first stanza is 2 sentences, and we've got a comma and a period. And then the second sentence, comma, comma, period. So that's that. The second stanza is also 2 sentences. You've got a comma and a period, and then this last sentence is kind of different. You've got these dashes, and then at the end of the line, there's nothing at the end of these 2 lines. And this is important because poetry is written and intended to be read out loud, following the punctuation, not following the line breaks. And I can assume, even before I read this poem, with these dashes, the poet wants to slow me down there. And then I'm gonna go fast. Not fast, but there won't be another pause, because there's no more commas or periods. Okay, does that make sense? So that's how I'm gonna read it. Last thing, do you see any lines that repeat? or word groups that repeat? Not really. There is one, it's not a full line, you'll see it in a minute, but what we're looking for there is the stanza of like a song. Your favorite song, there's a verse, and then a stanza that repeats, and then another verse, and then the stanza that repeats. And we want to see that, those lines that repeat, that stanza, if the poem has that, because that's really going to be important to the meaning. It's being emphasized, so we want to look for that. Don't see that here. So we talked about the title, talked about the poet, we surveyed the poem, how many stanzas, rhyming pattern, punctuation, repetition. Now it's time to read through it. We'll just read start to finish, just straight through. We're not studying it yet. We're just reading through it, and then I'm gonna ask you, what's it talking about? I'll go ahead and read this one, and then after today, I'm gonna start getting volunteers to read the poems for us. So the title of this poem, At the Unnational Monument Along the Canadian Border. Long title. This is the field where the battle did not happen, where the unknown soldier did not die. This is the field where grass joined hands, where no monument stands, and the only heroic thing is the sky. Birds fly here without any sound, unfolding their wings across the open. No people killed or were killed on this ground hallowed by neglect and an air so tame that people celebrate it by forgetting its name. What's it talking about? What's it talking about? Don't think, just give me something. Like one thing you see. It's okay, it's relaxing.
Talking about how the Canadian border has no conflict.
Okay, you guys are like way past what I'm looking for, but it's great, it's great. You're talking about tone, and you're trying to get to like the theme or the meaning. Literally, it's talking about a field, the sky,
Like nature.
nature, there's a bird, nature. I didn't see any people in this really, right? Okay, so you read through the poem start to finish. If it's not a difficult poem, you'll start getting to like the good stuff real fast. But if it's a hard poem, just what are the literal elements, the surfacey stuff? It's talking about a field, there's nature stuff. Apparently there was no battle there. Okay, I got all that. What's the point of view? First or third? You might not have that after one reading, but it's a good idea to pay attention to that early on too. We really want to know who's talking to us, who's the speaker. So it's third person. The speaker is not a character in the story, right? There's no first person pronouns like I, we, us. Okay. It doesn't say, it says that people celebrate it by forgetting its name. It doesn't say I forget it or we forget it. Okay. So it's third person. So you've got a kind of an unattached narrator. It's not a character in the story telling us the story. Okay, after you do that, now you just go line by line. Kind of paraphrase, you're looking for the rhetorical devices, you're looking for words that have multiple meanings, you're going back to the title and just trying to piece it together. And some lines are gonna be so simple. This is the field where the battle didn't happen. Okay, so we're in a field, a battle didn't happen here, there wasn't a war here. Where the unknown soldier did not die. Again, the conflict didn't happen here. This is the field where grass joined hands. What do you think about that?
Together.
Can grass hold hands with other grass? I mean, so what's that called? Personification, that's right, Frankie. So we've got personification that could be used symbolically. And what did you say a minute ago? Togetherness. We are talking about a border. So you've got a border between neighbors. Okay, we'll come back. Where no monument stands. So maybe that's getting to the unnational monument part, because it says there was no battle here, nobody died here, and there's no monument here. Where no monument stands, and the only heroic thing is the sky. If something's heroic, what is it? I mean, what does heroic mean? Hero? What does heroic mean? Like, what's a hero do?
Saves people.
Saves people, does something bold, does something great, has an impact, positive impact, right? Valiantly strives. So, the only heroic thing, the only great, positive, wonderful thing is the sky. Birds fly here without any sound. This kind of gets into imagery territory a little bit. Do you know what imagery is? Mental picture in your mind. It's details that hit all your senses. It's details that let you know, and I struggled with this when I was a kid because it says imagery, so I'm thinking image, like what you see. But it's all the senses. It's details that let you know what something feels like, maybe to the touch. Is it smooth or bumpy, or the cold river, the wet, cold river that you put your hand in the mountains and feels so good, or what something sounds like, or what it smells like or tastes like, okay? Not just what it looks like. So here we've got this idea that birds fly here without any sound. Down here the air is so tame. So we're getting some details about the sky. The only heroic thing is the sky. They talked about no battle happened here. If there was a battle, if this was like a war zone, what would the sky look like? Dark, clouds, stuff flying everywhere, chaos, right? This poem is going on and on about how none of that is the case. There was no battle here, nobody died here, the grass is joining hands. You guys kind of know where that's going already, I think. There's no monument here. The only heroic thing is the sky. Birds fly here without any sound. It's real quiet, peaceful, unfolding their wings across the open. No people killed or were killed. This is interesting because you're talking about both sides of a conflict here. No people killed others, and no people were killed. On this ground, hallowed. What does hallowed mean? If you say this is hallowed ground. Not so much empty, it's not hollow. It's hallowed with an A. Say your family immigrated here 5 generations ago and great-great-great-grandfather bought this piece of land and your family still has it. And it's been passed down. That's not my family story, I'll tell you. But say you have land that's been passed down through your family, through the generations. Your family might treat that as hallowed ground. Like it's sacred. Huh? Like inherited, like sacred, like you treat it with respect. Like you respect it, and it's almost holy. It's sacred to you, because it's from your family. It's okay. So they're saying this ground is sacred by neglect. So we neglect it because nothing happened there. That makes it maybe sacred or holy or pure. And an air so tame, and tame means what? Calm, quiet, cool, easy, chill. The opposite of chaos, right? The opposite of wild. So the ground is sacred by being neglected, and the air is so quiet that people celebrate it by forgetting its name. That people don't even think about it. There's no monument there. People don't think about it. They don't even know the name. So, tell me more about the thought y'all had earlier about the hands in the grass. The border, huh?
It kind of hit me like it's a border. Typically, using those to separate areas, but then this poem uses like the I can't see the line. The grass joining hands together. That's kind of like bringing two together.
It's removing the
Border.
the border a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a little extra background, a little extra context. Number one, the US-Canadian border is the longest unmanned, largely unprotected border in the world. Like if you drive up I-95 on the East Coast or drive up the 5 on the West Coast, which goes into New Brunswick on the east and goes to Vancouver on the west. If you drive into Canada, there will be border patrol checkpoints and stuff, sure. But there's so much of the border that's open and there's no fence, no wall, no guards, like no problem, okay? So it's the longest border like that in the world. The other point I'll make is, and I'm gonna ask you, what's our relationship like with Canada? The US? Friends. Have we ever been at war with them? No. So people celebrate it by forgetting its name. People take for granted what they have, right? And there's no monument here. The poem is a little bit sad in a way because it's talking about, we have monuments for all kinds of like conflicts and battles and where wars happen. Here's this peaceful place with nature where nobody died, there's no blood on the ground, and we don't put up a monument for it and we forget about it. But the poem is really commenting on the relationship between the two countries and the greatness, the friendship, and the allies, you know, relationship between the two, right? Longest unmanned border in the world, longest title of a poem ever. Not really, but it's a long title. I don't know what he intended, but I'm guessing he intended the title itself to be symbolic of that border length. So, cool, so those are the steps. Title, author, what's the poem look like? Stanzas, rhyming, punctuation, repetition, you can do that in about 15 seconds. Read through it, start to finish once, start getting ideas going. You might jump the gun and like really start hitting some theme ideas, which would be great. Then go back line by line and keep going back to the title, especially if it's a long title like this. If it's a short title like that biscuit poem, maybe not, but okay. So that's the strategy. So we're gonna do it one more time, a little bit differently. Read the questions on this, but this is not for this poem, and you're not filling this out. You don't have to fill this out. Exactly, it's not like an assignment. Here we go. Good. Here's what I want to do for part 2 of this fun class. I'm going to show you a photograph. And for 2 minutes, we're going to put our phones away, and I want you to look at this photograph for 2 minutes and take it in. And look at all the details you can find. Consider the photographer and what was the photographer trying to do. And just everything you can see about it, okay? On this paper, we're gonna talk through this. You don't have to fill this out, but this is kind of what we're gonna go over, so you've kind of read that real quick. You can jot notes on this worksheet if you want, the front or the back, flip it over, I don't care. Wherever you wanna jot some stuff down, okay? I'm not taking this for a grade, this is just like to guide our conversation. But for 2 minutes, we're gonna look at this photo and I want you to just study it. Like get whatever you can from it, details and stuff, okay? Sound good? Ready? Okay, here we go. you tell me?
They're protecting that endangered rhino.
Who?
Those who are that rhino.
Okay, so, first question, who are the characters? So the 4 soldiers and,
The rhino.
we'll call them soldiers, they're wearing camouflage and stuff. And the rhino. The rhino's an animal. Can the rhino be a character? Yep, it's fiction. Yep, sure. So you got the 4 guys and you got the rhino. First question. Second question is, what are their relationships like?
They care about protecting the rhino. They care about the rhino, I guess, because they're
Maybe they're just doing it for a paycheck, but how do you know they're protecting the rhino? Okay, so the position where they're standing, they're like on the 4 corners. Do they trust the rhino?
Yeah.
How do you know? They have their backs to the rhino. Does the rhino trust them?
Yeah.
Well, he's not acting crazy. He's not trying to escape, right? He looks very docile, very chill. So we've got the 4 soldiers, we got the rhino, those are the characters. It looks like a trusting, protective kind of relationship. What can you tell me about the soldiers? They're armed, they have shotguns. Huh? They're focused on what?
Anything that, I would assume anything trying to harm
Yeah, trying to hunt the rhino.
You're right. Where is he looking?
the distance.
The distance? Are the 4 of them like all grouped together, like buddies, like chit-chatting and talking about the weekend plans and stuff? No, they're scattered around. They're all looking in different directions, so we got east, west, north, south going, right? And his eyes, he's looking off on the horizon. His facial expression, does he look scared?
Looks kind of like brave almost.
Brave? Okay, we'll come back to brave. Locked in, like focused? Okay, how's he standing? Is he like leaning against a tree and
No, he's kind of in a relaxed, straight position.
there are no trees? He looks relaxed, but he's also at low ready,
Yeah.
right? So he's got the shotgun at low ready, so he's watching the horizon, and if he needs to use it, he can get it up pretty fast and use it. It's not like on the ground, it's not, on his shoulder, on his back. His eyes are kind of locked in, looking at the horizon over there. We assume those guys are the same. Okay. What'd you say a minute ago when I said we'd come back to it?
Brave.
Brave? Why? I mean, how do you know?
He's
What?
got kind of like a smolder on his face.
Okay,
And I mean, in my position, I mean, I'd have to force myself to be that, like, brave
okay.
in any sort of position.
Okay, let me ask you this. Think of the photographer as the speaker. So we wanna know who the speaker is, and if it's first person, we gotta know like who they are and how they feel about the other characters, because they're presenting the characters in a certain way. In this case, the photographer, how's the photographer presenting the guy? Where's the camera?
Up close in person.
Up close, yeah, up close.
It's on the ground, pointing
Up
up,
close.
making him look larger.
And it's down here looking up, making him look larger. He looks larger than the rhino.
Yeah.
And the sun is gleaming, shining off the shotgun, and they're all in the sunlight. If you take photography, they'll talk about the rule of thirds. You wouldn't normally have the horizon way down here. So you would have the horizon like here or here, thirds, not right in the middle, but not way down here. But by putting it down here, and the camera chops off his feet, we can't see how far he is from the rhino. That might be 20 yards or whatever, we don't know. But it makes him look larger than life. It makes him look brave, which is what you said. Okay? So, if the photographer wanted to make the guys, look small and insignificant, he could do that, putting the camera somewhere else, but this is what he chose to portray. What else do you see?
It's really cool.
The rhino kind of reminds me of Eeyore.
Huh? Looks like it's about to rain back there. So we've got the sun reflecting off all these guys, light colored. It's a good guy, right? He's protecting the rhino. In the background, you want to pay attention to the weather. Always. I mean, I'm not saying it's 100% true, but it's 90% true. You know, the girl's hitchhiking and gets, you know, caught by a monster and chopped up in the story or whatever. It's probably nighttime and raining. Right? I mean, or in a story when it's a sunny, beautiful day, but then all of a sudden it starts to rain. The mood, the tone of the story changes. Something bad's about to happen, right? So we have, and this is a really big sky because the camera's down here and the photographer only gave us this tiny little bit of horizon over here. So it's mostly sky that we're looking at. And yeah, it looks like it's gonna rain back there. So using weather that way, it could literally be about to rain, or that could be symbolic of a coming conflict, a coming problem. And we can imagine what that could be because we see what they're doing. They have weapons and we can see what they're trying to do. So, so that weather could be symbolic of what's to come. What else do you see?
A house and a fence.
Okay, I see a fence back there, possibly a gate that's way back there. The house, this thing over here? Yeah, I don't know if that's a house. It could be just like a hill. It could be a house. It's way over there. Do the guys have any shelter? Shade, tree to get under, roof to get under? So it's kind of a vulnerable position, right? The bad guys come screaming across the field to them. They're kind of out there by themselves. Or if it's just weather, maybe there's not gonna be a big conflict, but the weather rolls in, they're kind of out there on their own. A friend of mine and I, a few weeks ago, hiked Wheeler Peak, which is the tallest point in New Mexico, 13,000 feet. And I was surprised on the way down. We were coming down the trail from being up at the top about 2 or 3 in the afternoon. I was surprised at the number of people headed up at that time of day. We got started about 6 a.m., right when the sun started coming up. That's when we started hit the trail. But what happens in the mountains in the afternoon?
It's cold.
Gets cold,
And it rains.
it rains. If you go to Ruidoso or Cloudcroft, or, you know, if you're in the mountains, the afternoon shower is a real common thing. And if you're gonna be hiking up above tree line, like we were, way above tree line, you don't wanna be up there when there's any weather, because the lightning, and it can feel very vulnerable. And that's what I think of with this picture, these guys, they're really kinda out in the open by themselves. Okay, what else do you notice? Details. We talked about the guys, what about the rhino?
It's.
Doesn't have a horn.
It's not one.
Doesn't have a horn, which means
What's your-
he's really vulnerable, because the horn that they have is for protection. That's their weapon, so he doesn't have it. What else do you notice?
The grass is dry.
The grass is dry. And the color of it, color is used symbolically sometimes. I don't know that it's symbolic here, but it is dry. And their uniforms are all kind of very muted, kind of neutral colors. The colors of their outfits kind of match the ground, match the rhino. It's almost like they're all one. Nature and the guys in the rhino are all one. The storm back there is a whole different color, a whole different thing. Okay? Anything else? I think we've kind of hit all the big highlights. Anything else you can kind of
It
think
looks like
of?
they've been there for a while, they're resting on their back foot.
Resting on the back foot?
And
Yeah, it could be that they work that 12-hour shift or whatever, all day. But they're not sitting down.
Right.
Weapon still in his hands, ready. His eyes are still,
3 of them.
he's not looking at his cell phone. Yeah, this guy's tired, he's got his gun over there, he's slacker. But the other guys, same thing, like, you know, ready for what may come. So, okay. There's a photographer who took the picture. Let's think of the photographer as like the speaker of a story, presenting the characters, presenting the story. There's a photographer. What do you think the photographer is trying to say about this situation or scene, or about the guys? What's the photographer think about the soldier? Or the scenario? Vulnerable but brave. Okay? Y'all agree with that? Okay. Give this picture a title, a name. Remember what you just said, remember that. What would you title it if you needed to come up with a title?
Good question.
Last class said low ready. I think they liked that I taught them a firearm term. So we'll go with that, low ready. That's the name of the photo, okay. I'm gonna change gears on you real fast. Ready? You're gonna be writing a research paper pretty soon. It needs to have a thesis statement. What does a thesis statement do? In your writing, what does a thesis statement do?
What's your claim?
It states the thesis. Yes, it does two things. It's your claim. Okay. It answers the prompt, or gives your position, or gives your claim. And then the other thing it does is provides a roadmap. It lets the reader know where we're going. Okay. This is kind of a bad example, and I don't believe this, so hear me now, I don't believe this, but let me say, what if I said, you should go to college? Because it'll be better for you financially, and it'll make you a better citizen. Is that a thesis statement? I stated the position, you should go to college. Again, I don't believe that for everybody, but because it will be better for you financially, and it'll make you a better citizen. So, I stated the position, and then the roadmap, I told you the two reasons why. Body paragraph 1 is gonna be all about the money, why it's better for you financially. And I use stats and data and statistics and whatever. Paragraph 2 is gonna be all about how it makes you a better citizen. So, in the thesis statement, you're not exploring it, you're not explaining it a whole bunch, you're just saying it. Roadmap, here's where we're going. Here's what I think, and I think it because of reason number 1, reason number 2. That's the thesis statement. We teach you to put it at the end of the introduction. You want it kind of up toward the top of the paper. You don't want your reader to read your paper and like not sure about what you're arguing and saying. Okay? And then the body paragraphs, they have to support that thesis statement. Okay? So on the bottom of your paper, if you'll look at that, a thesis statement for this, we could argue what the photographer here was doing, okay? We could say, in his picture, low ready, the photographer illustrates that the soldiers are vulnerable but brave. Then body paragraph 1 would be all about how they're vulnerable. They're out there by themselves, they don't have shelter, they're a long way from help, there's no Humvee to get into if it starts raining, whatever. Vulnerable. And then, but they're also brave. And I like the order of that too, because you give the bad first. You give the danger part first, but then they still do it anyway. So I like the order of that better than if it had been the other way, okay? So that's all it is. If you're doing an analysis of literature, if you're gonna write a paper about a poem, or a photograph, you're gonna do a research paper, you need a thesis statement, All it is it's making your statement and giving like 2 reasons. They're vulnerable but brave. And then your body paragraphs, then you have a whole paragraph explaining each of those. Does that make sense? I know that thesis statement didn't exactly follow this little template on here. That's okay. We'll talk more about thesis statements next week. Long story short, you're gonna pick a career to research, something you might like to do after high school. You're gonna have a thesis statement that says, being a dental hygienist is a great career because, reason 1, reason 2. And then those body paragraphs are gonna explain it. Body paragraph 1 is one of the paragraphs has to talk about requirements. What do you have to do to be a dental hygienist? You have to go to college. Do you need other training? Do you have certifications or licensing from the state? Do you have a background check, drug test? I mean, like all the things to get there. The second paragraph is gonna be the benefits. Why, what you get for being a dental hygienist. That'll be like a day in the life of, what's the job look like? Pay, pension, whatever, all the benefits, okay? The conclusion, I can tell you now, we try not to write in first person. The conclusion of your research paper will be in first person. That's gonna be your self-reflection part. So you're gonna tell me all about being a teacher, a pilot, steam locomotive engineer, whatever, and explain the job and what you gotta do to get there. The ending of it, you're gonna say why you're interested in that and why you think it's a good fit for you. Okay, so I'll help you with that. We're gonna spend 3 weeks on this, so we've got time. But I'm trying to give you a roadmap. I'm trying to show you where we're going with this project, okay? So today, we did the poetry strategy, one more time. We rolled into a photo kind of analysis, using the same questions that we use. Who are the characters? What are the relationships like? What are their motivations? And then I tried to tie it into the idea of writing a thesis statement. What a thesis statement normally does, how you write it, how it fits this photo, and you guys were great with some good ideas. And then also what to expect on the research paper coming up as far as thesis statement.